So Cyberpunk's update schedule may be over for now, but that doesn't mean any of us should stop aiming for new playthroughs. Since my last Perfect Start guide more than 2 years ago, many things have changed, including story decisions that I believe are much easier to take now that we have Phantom Liberty. This video will of course focus mainly on the best things to get in Act 1 as well as some of the stuff in the beginning of Act 2 so that you can set yourself up pretty much for the perfect start after patch 2.3. Also a quick word from our sponsor. Today's video has been brought to you by Disorder. If you've been looking for the thrill of a dungeon crawler with the high stakes of a roguelite, this game pretty much combines all of that in a very aesthetic kind of way. At its core, Disorder is a flashy hack and slash with devastating skills and crazy power-ups that let you annihilate entire waves of enemies in an instant. Be it if you're playing on the PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, the game has support for Steam Deck as well. Plus, in typical roguelite fashion, resources you've earned can be used for permanent upgrades and other skill customizations, letting you get better and better for subsequent runs. But the developers also announced 2 new characters dropping with a free DLC update, one of which is a ranged character that specializes in firearms to of course take enemies from afar. However, a summoner class that uses drones is also in the plans. So definitely check the game out using the links down below as well as in the pinned comment, and I'll give another big thanks to the Disorder team for sponsoring today's video. But with that out of the way, here's a quick refresher for everybody who wants to jump in a new playthrough. First of all, straight from the new game screen, you're now going to have 2 options. One involving a regular start just like before, but we also get to skip ahead to Phantom Liberty if we want to. However, I highly encourage you not to skip ahead to Phantom Liberty for a few good reasons. First is that you're going to have this save pretty much skip a whole portion of the main story, meaning that it's going to deprive you of any particular story decisions you might have wanted to make up until this point. Besides this, you will also start with a pre-made build, which kinda sucks because maybe you wanted to go with a Netrunner instead. Case in which, this means you're going to have to pretty much waste your only full character attribute reset that you get only once per playthrough. In terms of the life path choice, pick whichever you like the most. The differences are going to be minimal, but there are quite a few we're gonna highlight. From this point on, once I'm back to V's apartment and the prologue is finished, there are a few things I want to grab from the mega building right away. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and talk to Coach Greg and immediately buy a couple of these capacity boosters. They will make a lot of sense in just a little bit. Also, I'm going to go here to the Second Amendment and talk to Wilson. This is going to give us that free iconic Unity pistol. It's not going to be the greatest, but it will do for now. Of course, if you have any GOG pre-order katanas and Witcher gear, I recommend also grabbing those. Especially in today's video, we're gonna go with a reflex build, so more on that in just a little bit. Now, if you're like me and also pre-ordered Phantom Liberty back in the days, you should also get one of these messages from the body count lottery telling you that you won a free Quadra Vigilante. This is going to be very useful but not completely needed. It is going to be faster than the default V's car, and in this case I'm going to go ahead and accept it. It's going to help us a ton from this point on. And once we're done with that, we're gonna go in town and grab one final thing, which is going to be the gift that T-Bug left behind over here at the Kabuki market. It might not look like much, but we're gonna get the pink quick hack, and let me tell you, this is actually very useful, especially early on. There are quite a few moments in which we want to see the positioning of every enemy, maybe inside of a building, so this is going to help a ton with that. And now we're almost ready to go. However, I recommend not following the main story just yet. There are still quite a few things we can do on top and have a lot more fun in Act 1. That is why, for now, I recommend not calling Meredith Stout, not following the pickup mission and doing that whole Maelstrom sequence. Just create a hard save before any of those decisions, and we're going to instead focus on the open world, and specifically we're going to focus on some of these NCPD scan hustles, and specifically we're going to start with 3 of them over here, including including a gig in North Side, as that's going to provide 3 of the best iconic weapons in the game straight from Act 1. So the first one is going to be right here at Organized Crime Vice Control over on this side of the map. There's going to be a parking lot over here, and inside you're going to eventually encounter Yelena. And once you defeat her, she's going to drop the crafting spec for the Buzzsaw SMG. This is already an amazing option. Its shots can actually penetrate cover, and not only that, but it also comes with a 40% increase to limb damage, which means high chance of dismemberment. Literally, this thing can carry you a ton, but we can find an alternative for it in just a little bit if you prefer something else. In the meantime, once we're done with this NCPD hustle, a second one will open just across the street. So right here a bit up north, we can head over to the NCPD event called Just Say No. Here you should find a bunch of enemies, including this Maelstrom guy with the Mantis Blaze that if you defeat will drop the crafting spec for the Psalm 11.6. So this is going to be another amazing rifle option this time around, and this one basically shoots explosive rounds. Plus, it also starts with a base burn chance of 20%, but we can actually buff that with a mod that we can get during the pickup mission. The third and final weapon will be another SMG, an alternative to the Buzzsaw, which is the Fenrir. We can actually head over right here to the cargo bay and basically start the Sacrum Profanum from the monk brother we can find in the area. It doesn't matter how you complete the quest, whatever you do during that mission, when you save the brother, pay attention to the counter to the left side of him. You're going to notice that the Fenrir weapon is sitting right there. You don't even have to actually craft it. So this weapon has a solid 10% chance when shooting to upload a cyber malfunction quick hack on the target and also increase shock damage against it. Literally meaning that you're not just going to see extra shock damage on the target, but you're going to disable all of their cyberware for quite a few number of seconds. Meaning that it's going to also be excellent against cyber psychos and more. Both this and the Buzzsaw are amazing, so just go with whichever you want. Personally, Fenrir is the best for me. However, since we're on the subject, this is going to now bring us to the best XP and money farming method at this stage in the game. But to prepare for that, we're going to need to head over to V's apartment and basically get 2 1-hour buffs. One is going to be acquired by just resting in V's bed. This is going to give us a rested buff, which basically increases our skill acquisition XP by 20% for a whole hour. If we go ahead and also shower, this is going to give us another buff that basically lets us regenerate HP even during combat. In fact, this second buff further stacks with the rejuvenation buff we have in our body line. Of course, there's also a third one you can get from drinking coffee, but that's going to be only at the other apartments in the other neighborhoods, so for now this is going to suffice. And from this point on, what we're gonna do is hit up as many NCPD hustles as we can. In fact, I actually recommend hitting all of them, as that in total will provide 10 levels at the very least, 15 street cred, at least 150,000 eddies, and a ton of extra loot. So in this case, we have about 30 to 40 of them all across Watson, and it takes roughly 1 hour to 1 hour and a half to actually complete all of them, which means we also make the most out of those 1 hour buffs we just got. But besides that, I also recommend pretty much grabbing every piece of loot you see enemies dropping, especially their weapons. Broken weapons get to be turned into crafting materials automatically. Meanwhile, for the weapons themselves, we can go ahead and sell them for hundreds of eddies each. So in total, as you can see, by the time I was finished with everything I'm showing you in this video, I had almost 500,000 eddies sitting in my bank very easily. This is why I also suggested those capacity boosters early on. They will help a ton if you're over encumbered or just want to have more capacity to store more items on your way towards the next drop point. There are a couple more tips that I have during these moments. Another aspect of looting the bodies and all the containers is that you will oftentimes get these cyber capacity shards from them. It's one of the main ways to increase how many implants V can take, so definitely try to visit every corpse you leave behind. Another aspect is that you're not going to want to leave any container unopened either, because a lot of them now actually give you upgrades either to your max doc healing potion or to your grenades. And of course, finally, also read every single conversation shard you find from these NCPD hustles. A lot of them actually have follow-up crime activities that oftentimes bring you to locations with even more containers and loot. So pretty much always worth it to complete everything. And now that we're done with all of this, by this point you should be at least level 10 and have at least 15 into street cred, which means you can now buy even stronger cyber implants at any Ripperdoc in the city. So now in 2.0 and past 2.0, you can go at any Ripperdoc and pretty much buy the reinforced tendons the moment you hit level 10. This is going to give us the double jump, and it's going to be absolutely important from this point on. Everything else depends on your build. I'm going with a reflex / slow motion build, so Karanzikov, preferably even a Sandevistan if you can afford that, and anything that can help you with slow motion or with damage with your swords will help for now. And now we're pretty much ready to follow the actual main story mission. Now from this point on, I recommend creating another hard save, because the pickup is going to be one of the most complex mission structures you get in Cyberpunk 2077. That being said, there are a few ways in which you can solve this even in 2.3, and I will say that among all of them, my favorite is still the one in which Dum Dum survives at the end of the pickup mission. So in this one, we have to ensure that he is alive at the end of it, so that we can encounter him a second time later on in the main story during the follow-up quest called Second Conflict. This is going to let us now get the Dum Dum pistol from him, and that's still one of the top 3 revolvers in the game even after patch 2.3. So for this to trigger, we either have to ensure that we side with Maelstrom gang or resolve the whole conflict peacefully without Militech's involvement. We can, however, still get the Chaos pistol even if the Militech raid triggers if we go with that route, by simply setting the game to the highest possible difficulty and then letting Royce fight alone in the final boss room against Militech. There's actually a high chance in this case he will perish in the process, which means we get the outcome where we can retrieve his iconic weapon while still having Dum Dum survive. However, keep in mind that this is going to lock you out of the Meredith Stout romance and also her OP melee weapon we would normally get at the start of Act 2. The second best option is the one in which you actually side with Militech and specifically with Meredith Stout. So in this case, I'm going to call Meredith, I'm going to accept the chip from her and then go ahead and immediately hack it. Not only this is going to provide another extra 10k eddies, but also the Synapse Burnout Quick Hack, which is going to be amazing if you're instead going with a Netrunner build. Another extra 10k eddies, but also the Synapse Burnout Quick Hack, which is going to be amazing if you're instead going with a Netrunner build. During this, you also have the option, if you play as a nomad, to comment on Jackie's bike, assuming that you have at least 7 points in technical ability, which in turn will provide you the much better improved version of his motorbike in Act 2, if you of course also send his body to his family at the end of the heist. During the Maelstrom conversation, I'm going to decide to punish Royce for his impudence by letting him face tank my pistol shot straight to the head. In this case, it also gives us quick access to the Chaos Iconic pistol outright, a solid all-around option, mind you, much better now than when Cyberpunk first came out. It cycles through random different crit chances, damage types and status effects on every single reload, so it feels stronger. It's going to deal these damage status effects on the targets, and oftentimes you're going to just blast through them so quickly because of it. Before you actually progress further in the factory, I recommend paying attention to the room Royce came from. If you go here and open up the door, you should see another container inside, and one of the items that you're going to be given is the Pyro mod. This is going to further convert 25% of the dealt damage to more thermal damage if you want to specialized in fire damage. From here on out, I always enjoy taking out Brig, even though that's going to make the second conflict a bit more hectic, just because I want to deal as much damage to the Maelstrom gang as I can, and this is going to also ensure that Stout actually lives at the end of the mission, meaning that we can have that follow-up mission with her at the start of Act 2. So at the start of Act 2, after you meet Takemura, it should not take too long for her to actually give you a message, and once you reply, you're going to have this spicy gig called Venus in Furs back at the No-Tell Motel. Once the whole deed is done, you can then retrieve the weapon and just let all your enemies marvel at its OPness. In this case, it has a very devastating 3-hit combo that goes really fast. Yes, it consumes a ton of stamina, but it also has a high chance of stunning. So basically, if you do a charge attack against their heads, that's going to have a 69% chance to actually leave them stunned. And of course, on top of the fact that head hits have a 69% increase increase in critical chance by default anyway. So overall, really solid choice if you want a blunt weapon instead. Now, for those of you who are wondering, yes, it's totally possible to also unlock the Maelstrom vendor. However, after 2.0, I think it's just not worth it any longer. In this case, it's only possible via the peaceful route. So for this route to be possible, you have to never contact Militech no matter what. So never call Meredith Stout, never accept the chip. And when you go to all foods, go ahead and not antagonize anybody, just pay with your own funds, which at this point you should have plenty of to afford it. Once that is done, you're going to be escorted out peacefully and immediately unlock that vendor you can go ahead and interact with. Unfortunately, I just think after patch 2.0, it is no longer worth it at all. Previously, before patch 2.0, this would provide a really cool legendary SATORI crafting spec. However, after 2.0, you're only going to get a Nova and a Chromatic crafting spec, which in my opinion are not worth it, and you can just get them from somewhere else. It does open some other weapon vendor stuff, but really not something I suggest doing. Quick disclaimer, there's actually a way to purchase the iconics you missed from all of these story decisions by purchasing them from Herold, the first vendor NPC that you encounter in Dogtown at the beginning of Phantom Liberty. He's going to be right here at the main stadium waypoint. However, keep in mind that he's only going to sell the iconics that you would have normally gotten via the decisions you made in the story, but for whatever reason you did not get them at the time you were supposed to. So let's say, for example, your decision was supposed to give you the Doom pistol, but it either didn't drop or maybe you forgot to take it from the body. In this case, you're going to find it here as well. Or equally, any other story mission in the game that similarly features different iconics depending on your decision. You cannot, however, purchase iconics belonging to different story decisions that you have not made during that playthrough. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. But anyway, before we actually even attempt the heist mission, there are a few more things I can confirm actually work even at the start of Act 1. One of which is that yes, it's totally possible to complete all of Regina Jones' 23 fixer gigs right here in Act 1 and also get the final reward, the axolotl. However, keep in mind, it's only going to be given to a tier 4 in this case, since you're technically below level 40. So if you want the tier 5 outright, I recommend just completing the last part of it once you hit level 40. However, on the way, there are some gigs that provide some very good rewards. If you complete most of them, you should get another 200k eddies, also lots more weapon mods, cyberware, iconic weapons, and even a Missable Ripperdoc that offers a 20% discount with the proper choice. So let's actually start with that one, unlocking Charles Bucks at the Scavs Clinic here in Kabuki during the last login gig. This is part of the 5th batch of gigs that she unlocks, or basically the 14th gig you can do for Regina Jones. During this, make sure that you go up the stairs at the end over here, and inside of the clinic area, you should see Charles. If you have a conversation with him, no matter what, pick the option "you're lying." After which is going to attempt to bribe you, so in this case, accept that. This is going to not only open him up as a Ripperdoc from this point on, but also provide a hefty discount on all the cyberware that he sells from this point on. And since Ripperdoc shops now are simplified in 2.0 and beyond, this means you can pretty much buy the majority of the cyber implants way cheaper than anywhere else. Another one is going to be the Hypercritical rifle from the gig Concrete Cage Trap right here in Kabuki, but unfortunately this is going to be one of the last batches of gigs that Regina unlocks for you. So pretty much gig number 18. During this, you've got to go ahead and help Tiny Mike escape the Militech agents, and during this you're going to find him in a bathroom, and the iconic precision rifle is going to be in the bathroom next to him. But the shots with this rifle will detonate on impact and provide an insane amount of knockback. Additionally, the damage on it is really good because every single time you shoot with it, you get a 100% more critical damage, and the last shot in the magazine will also deal a guaranteed critical damage. So overall, a very nice option. I would argue that you could also go ahead and attempt Occupational Hazard. This is going to put you up against a Cyber Psycho over here in a Mox facility over in North Side. If you go ahead and loot the Cyber Psycho body, you're going to actually get a pair of thermal katanas. Yes, by this point, technically you can just buy them outright, but instead of wasting like 10 to 15,000 eddies, why not just grab them for free? Now, obviously, by this point, we progressed quite a lot, but we can actually get so much more on top. And by this stage, you probably want at least some legendary gear so that you don't have to worry about what your character equips. Plus, quite a bit of it looks really nice. So let's get started with the first one. We can actually get a pair of legendary boots right here at the Kabuki market. Going in the market to the left side, we can take up the first elevator all the way to the 3rd floor. This is going to let you get one of the first legendary items right here from the chest next to the vendor. The steel solo boots you can go ahead and equip right away. We can, of course, also get a very cool outer torso, which is the Rocker's Jacket. We can get it right here from Bellevue Overwalk. From the waypoint, simply make your way up the stairs all the way into the back. You should see a corpse dropping that for you. We also have a couple more extra items very close to Mega Building number 12. So right here on this side of the map, very close to the passageway, we can actually just follow this route all the way near to some of these water cisterns and go all the way at the top. It's the same area we also got the Psalm, and basically this is going to let us get one of the coolest Netrunner pants in the game. Really loving the aesthetics on these. Not too far off from this location, we also have this intersection further down south. So in this case, follow my route. Going behind the building blocks, we should find a nice pair of cop glasses. So in this case, follow my route. Going behind the building blocks, we should find a nice pair of cop glasses. If instead you want a more corporal look, assuming that you went with a corporal life path, you can actually get both the pants and the vest right here up north in North Side. So the first one is going to be right here on this side of the map. If you pay attention, there should be a bodega of some sort with a bunch of corpses, and behind the exploded car you should find the chest piece right here upon this corpse. If you also want the cotton pants, you're going to instead go here further northwest from this location, closer to the highway. You should see the Trauma Team AV from afar. If you go close to the car, once again you should find another corpse giving you the cotton pants, and now you pretty much completed the build. Similarly, if you want a free optical camo even before level 10 without spending any money, you can actually get it from opening this garage over in Kabuki. It's the same area where the gig Shark in the Water takes place for Regina Jones. So if you open the door, you should see this container, inside of which you're going to find optical camo, cyber implant, plus of course an overheat quick hack and a few more other goodies on top. And in this case, optical camo will help quite a bit since it gives you outright invisibility. It can be very good to escape or sneak around. And now that we're done with this, we're now pretty much ready to go and attempt the heist mission. And I want you to be careful here because there are a few items that are completely missable and very difficult to get unless you're using some kind of glitches. And who knows, if you're watching this after patch 2.3, there may be a point where CDPR just fixes these. So the important bit here starts the moment you actually reach Yorinobu's apartment, and here's what you're going to want to go ahead and grab. First, we're going to go ahead and grab the Congo pistol right next to Yorinobu's bed. It's going to be right here, and it's going to be a pretty decent option. That also takes in a couple of mods, so it will definitely help both in the stages ahead and later down the line. From this point on, we're going to start with the bathroom and get Yorinobu's attire. There's going to be a really cool coat right here in one of the corners. However, we will also find the chest piece as well as the legs in a briefcase up the set of stairs. However, the door beyond them will be locked for now. And also don't forget to grab the iguana egg at the terrarium. We can actually get a really cool pet back at our apartment. Finally, we only have 2 more weapons remaining. This is going to happen after the whole scene with Yorinobu and his father and after the alarm gets triggered. So once you get out of the hideout, go ahead and retrieve the knee hand knife from Soburo's body. Once you hear T-Bug getting glitched, you're going to not want to progress through the main parts. Instead, go back up the stairs all the way to the outer terrace on the rooftop, defeat the 2 enemies, and also make sure to retrieve the SATORI katana. So this is going to be a pretty good combo. SATORI is one of the top 4 or 5 katanas in the whole game, which is going to augment that reflex build even more from this point on, and it also has a very good chance to apply bleeding. And in conjunction with the Nihan, if you just throw the knife at the bleeding target, it's going to instead turn that bleed into a hemorrhage, which is basically going to mean instant one-shots over there. Pretty much everything dies before they even get a chance to do anything. And this should in fact let you absolutely blast through Konpeki Plaza all the way to the end of the mission. However, there's one more thing here I suggest doing, and that is to make sure you send Jackie's body back to his family no matter what. If you do that at the start of Act 2, you're now going to get a message from Mama Wells, and after completing a brief mission over at the Coyote Bar, you're now going to get both his pair of iconic pistols as well as Jackie's bike, which is actually going to help a ton since your own car is pretty much gone in a Delamain incident, and assuming that you don't have the alternative from the pre-order of Phantom Liberty. Here are a few more tips I have for you along the way if you want more cyber hacks for absolutely free and also boost up your Netrunner skill even quicker. I recommend hacking all the control points you are able to find. You will see them by their distinctive icons, and in this case I recommend focusing specifically on the 3rd row below, the one that both extracts and copies the demon for you. So in this case, you don't have to purchase them from vendors and may even get quick hacks much sooner than you would otherwise. Besides this, you will also want to know that you do have one complete full reset of all the attributes and skill points. Skill points can be reset at any point, but the attributes can only be done once via this button. So keep in mind that if you use this, it's going to be gone for good. That is why I recommend using the build planner that CDPR put out online if you want to create a low-level build and go with something else than what I'm showing you. And last but definitely not least, since you have enough funds, you can go ahead and pay off your debt to Victor. The only thing that this achieves though after patch 2.3 is that it's going to open up his Ripperdoc services once again, so now you can access him straight from nearby your building apartment. But that is basically it. And that pretty much concludes today's video. Of course, if you found it useful, let me know by leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, plus activating that notification bell. Really helps the channel out, and I'll see you guys in the next one.